Okay, next we're going to have a look at is tree diagrams. I'm pretty sure, have done some tree diagrams before, although maybe you might have seen this before I took over last year. Basically, a tree diagram is a way of listing all of the possible outcomes. Or we could do it in a table, but most commonly we do it in a tree diagram. The reason why we wouldn't do it in a tree diagram is if there are too many outcomes. So an example of a tree diagram, which has got way too many outcomes, is if we roll 2 die. Obviously a die is the word that we use for more than one dice. Cactus, cacti, so dice or die is more than one. So if this is my die 1, and I have a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5 or a 6, and then every one of those branches has to have die 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I would follow along and say there's a 1 and a 1, a 1 and a 2, a 1 and a 3, a 1 and a 4, a 1 and a 5, and a 1 and a 6. Then I've got a 2 and a 1, a 2 and a 2, a 2 and a 3, a 2 and a 4, a 2 and a 5, a 2 and a 6, etc. This is really not making any sense. It's really hard to see, and there is so many, we can't even line them up next to them. So the best way to represent this sort of information is in a table. So you would have dice 1 down the side, dice 2 across the top, and then in the table you're actually writing a 1 with a 1, a 1 with a 2, a 1 with a 3, a 1 with a 4, a 2 with a 1, a 2 with a 2, a 2 with a 3, a 3 with a 4, etc. Over here is an example that we might use. It's not probably the best diagram, but we might do it when we have something simple. We'll draw a tree diagram where we roll a dice and then we toss a coin. So 6 arms in the tree, and each of those arms or each of those branches have to have a coin. So a head and a tail, head and a tail. So we get a 1 and a head, a 1 and a tail, a 2 and a head, a 2 and a tail, a 3 and a head, and a 3 and a tail. Or we could have, this is probably the best example, is we toss 3 coins or flip 3 coins. So I've got a head and a tail is my coin 1. My head and my tail is coin 2, and then my head and my tail is coin 3. So head and tail, 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 head and tail. 3 sets of the same, but 3 sets of branches joining on to each other. So if I follow my branches, I've got a head with a head with a head, a head with a head with then a tail, gives me head, head, tail, a head, a head, a head, a tail, then a head, a tail, and then a tail, a tail, a head, and a head, a tail, a head, and a tail. And we can list those down the side. Now, if we want to know the total number of possible outcomes, so in other words, the number that is in the sample space, we simply just multiply along our branches or multiply along our table. So in this case, I had 6 here and then another 6 possibilities, and each of those 6 had 6 on them. So 6 sixes are giving me 36 total possibilities. And that's a bit easier to see if you have a table. If you've got a 6 by 6 table, then obviously you're going to get 36 possible boxes in a combination of that 6 by 6 table. Up here I've got 6, and each of those are going to have, not that I've finished it, but each of those would have a head and a tail on the end of it. So that would be 6 lots of 2, and that would give me a total of 12 possible outcomes. And if I could list them down here, I would end up with 12. So the fact that I've now got 3 coins, so I've got 2 multiplied by 2 possibilities by another 2 possibilities, so I've ended up with a total of 8 possibilities. So I could list them all along here. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And generally, the best way to draw a tree diagram is to be able to list these at the end of each of those branches. So that would be tail, tail, head, and the last one would be tail, tail, tail. Now, the reason we do this is because it then gives us a list of all the possibilities. So what we can do is then calculate probability. So how many would we have if we had a head, and a head? How many times, what is the probability of getting 2 heads and a tail? So we know it's going to be out of the total possibility is 2 by 2 by 2, which is 8. So 2 heads and a tail. Okay, there's one there, there's another one there, and there's one there. So there is a total of 3 possibilities of 2 heads and a tail. You can now, I think that's probably enough information for you to work on 602, questions 4 through to 10.